Hello, I'm Darren Magee and welcome to my Mental Health Information and Awareness channel. Now, today's topic is continuing to look at the children that are raised in a narcissistic family. It's a family that I often describe as operating more like a cult. Today, we're going to be looking at the invisible child, sometimes referred to as the forgotten child or the lost child. Now, if you like this video, if you find it helpful, please check out my other videos on mental health related topics and please consider subscribing to my channel. Now, as I've discussed in previous videos, the narcissistic family, like I said, operates more like a cult, and within that cult, the children are given roles. Now, the most common being the golden child. That's the child the narcissistic parent lives vicariously through. There's the scapegoat. That's the child who is held responsible for all the family's distress and misery. And when I say cult, what I mean by that is the family operates in a way that they have to be beyond reproach. They have to be perfect. They have to be wonderful to the outside world. Inside that family, there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of shame. It is very dysfunctional. The parents in these families do not give the children what they need in order for them to grow and develop in a normal, healthy, loving way. And the lost child within that family, that's the child that doesn't really stand out for any particular reason. They're not very outgoing. They tend to be very compliant, very well behaved. Given the emotional chaos that they live in, they tend to live this way in order not to draw any attention to themselves. So quite often it is a child that is hidden in plain sight. If they are particularly skilled at something, they tend to keep it quiet, painting pictures, making things. They do these things alone in their room, sometimes hiding what they're doing, hiding what they've created. They don't want to outshine the golden child because that may bring the wrath of the parent or bullying from the golden child. So they are obedient without question. They are compliant because they don't want the abuse that the scapegoat gets. So instead they tend to keep to themselves, which can actually make them a target for bullying from, say, the golden child. Now, to the outside world, they may seem shy, but what they're really doing is trying not to draw attention to themselves. So they use a lot of energy trying to avoid being noticed. They'll not necessarily volunteer for anything at school. They will always be in the background when other kids are playing. They tend to stay on the periphery of social groups and activities. And this is normally due to the emotional, sometimes physical, neglect and abuse. They not only witness, but they also endure themselves because the thing is, see, in narcissistic families, none of the children, not even the partner, if it's just the one parent who's a narcissist, none of them are immune or exempt from the unkind humour, the scorn and the humiliation. Not even the golden child. So they learn to stay quiet. They shut down. They will either hide or freeze, waiting for a traumatic situation to pass. Now, unlike the scapegoat, who is actually blamed, in early childhood, the lost child may learn to blame themselves for the family's distress and woes. They come to believe it is wrong for them to want anything. They don't have a place anywhere, whether that's at home or at school or whatever. So they learn to become very unassuming, and as I say, they stay in the background. Now, when it comes to choosing the invisible child, if that's the correct term for it, choosing it, typically, though not all the time, typically it's the third born child, though, however, it can be any child from oldest to youngest. Now, the lost child spends a lot of time daydreaming, a lot of time fantasizing, creating worlds in their mind where they're happy, happier than they are with their real family. They tend to do solitary activities like watching TV, playing video games. They will play with their toys alone in their bedroom, read books. They tend to live a life that is both lonely and afraid. Now, all children have a need. A child needs the parent or the caregiver to mirror them, to reflect them. It's their sense of specialness, their sense of value. When a child is raised in an environment of abuse or neglect, where love is conditional, their sense of identity never really forms. Now, they may see the unfairness of the preferential treatment the golden child gets. They may even see the attention the scapegoat gets, even if it's negative attention. But because the lost child's identity doesn't really form, they learn to avoid the unkind humour, the narcissistic rage. And they do this by complying, obeying, staying quietly in the background. It feels safer to be ignored, just in case that attention turns out to be unwanted, unwelcome, unkind. and they tend to lack a voice, so they don't really learn how to express themselves to others. They learn to be selfless, overly generous, self sacrificing, especially to the other family members. And lacking a voice, they're often bullied by either older siblings or when at school. And they tend to jump through numerous kind of hoops for others, not so much to win their approval, but to avoid their disapproval. They pick friendships where they feel safe, where they won't be criticized or emotionally wounded, but even these friendships can be quite superficial. Um, they can just abandon, leave those relationships, those friendships without a word. Now, if it's a child, or in later years, say a boyfriend or a girlfriend, if it's someone the parent disapproves of, then they will either just dump that person, they will cut ties with that person, or they will try to keep it secret. And as they do grow older, say as teenagers, they can even begin to question their own right to exist, having never really had their emotional needs met. Some may even feel that having needs of their own equates to being selfish because all their lives they were taught only to see others. And as I've previously said, having never had anyone mirror them, at least not in a healthy, nurturing way, the invisible child grows up believing that no one sees them. They don't matter. They still struggle to find their own voice and lack assertiveness even as adults. This can lead them to be either passive and accepting other people's bad behaviour towards them, or they can become passive aggressive, though sometimes both. And when anyone does reach out to them, especially when adults, try to connect with them on more than just the surface level, say even a professional level, like at work. It can feel intrusive, it can feel threatening, it can lead to avoidant and defensive behaviours. They have learned to fear intimacy. So there are my thoughts on the lost, invisible child growing up in a narcissistic family. In a future video, I'll look at what life for that lost child as an adult looks like. Now, if you have any comments, queries, or experiences of your own that you'd like to share, please use the comment box below. I do like reading them and responding to them whenever I can. If you like this video, please consider subscribing to my channel for future updates on mental health related topics. And until next time, thanks for watching.